Hello, everybody. Hello, so glad to see you all. Thank you so much for coming today to celebrate day one of our Library of Congress American Folklife Center Archive Challenge Week. We are delighted and excited to have you here. It is going to be an amazing week. There's a flyer available on Facebook and also by email. Please pass it around and get as many folks as possible to join us. It's always a blast to have Stephen Winick and Jennifer Cutting in the room in the Daily Antidote of Song Archive Challenge Weeks. They are really a dictionary, encyclopedia, folklorist, ethnomusicology journey unto itself. And I'm super excited that we're going to be sharing space with them today. Hello and greetings to everybody out there on Facebook Live, and hello to everybody in the room, Suzanne and Becky in Vancouver, Gay, hello, Dan in Virginia, Susan in Ohio, Deborah in Kentucky, Sue in California, Rosalie in Michigan, Sarah in Texas, Doug in Vermont, Arlene in California, Anna in Maine, hello, and hello to Janet in Georgia, Candace, hello, Hindi in Toronto, Renata in Wisconsin, hello, Dick from the Getting Higher Choir, Dion in Mass, Dennis from Ubuntu Choirs Network, hello, Jane, nice to have you today, coming in from Pennsylvania, Susan, Annette in California, Bonnie in Idaho, Carolyn in Idaho, right next to each other, I love it. Kim, hello, nice to see you today. Lisa in Indiana, Christiana and Bob in Rockville, Lynn in Connecticut, Peter and Janet in Toronto, hello and hello. Valerie in Kentucky, Tom in Victoria, Mabel in Mass, Isabel in Florida, hello Karen, nice to have you today, and Deli in Maryland, Jim in New York, hello Max in New Hampshire, and Anne in Maryland, Shane Odom and family, hello, coming in from the hills of somewhere where I forget, but we're so glad to see you guys today.
Cumberland, Maryland.
Thank you. Coming in from the hills of Cumberland, Maryland. Nice to have all of you today. And hello to Nancy in Washington. Hello, Lynn. Nice to see you. Hello, Amos, coming in from, I don't remember, but Wesleyan ethnomusicology grads. We've got lots of ethnomusicology in the room. Hello, Luda in Victoria. Gary, Beth in Kentucky, Randy, Nancy, hello, Bob and Jamie in Victoria, Judith, Alan in Maryland, hello. And to folks off video today, Nancy and Lee, Sandy and Lori, Barbara and Cricket and Susan and Karen and Leslie and lots of other folks. I'm so glad you've all joined today. We are so excited to be starting another Archive Challenge Week. I think this is our third Archive Challenge Week in the Daily Antidote of Song. Fourth? Third. Yeah.
Third.
And the first two were so amazing. So I promise you guys an amazing journey of music and of thought about music. Today, our hosts are Stephen Winick and Jennifer Cutting. So both from the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. Steve is a folklorist and Jen is an ethnomusicologist. And they are both also in the Ocean Orchestra and the Ocean Celtic Quartet. And today they're not only hosting, they'll be hosting with us all week, but today they're not only hosting, they're also our musicians for the day. I'm going to turn the floor over to Steve and Jen. So glad to be back in the room with you guys.
Hey, everybody. As Joe said, I'm Jennifer Cutting, and this is my colleague, Stephen Winick. We're both folklife specialists at the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. And we don't usually dress like this for work, but it's St. Patrick's Day week, and we can't resist getting a bit festive here. We're here to kick off the Archive Challenge Partnership Week number 3 on the Daily Antidote of Song. So thank you everybody for joining us. And one of the parts of our job that we love so much, it's my favorite part of my job, is reaching out to folks in the creative community to interest them in all the great songs and tunes that we have in our archives collections. And those collections date all the way back to 1928, when, just a short potted history here, not too long and boring, but the head of the library's music division lobbied for and got a national folk music archive established within the music division at the Library of Congress. And it happened at a time when countries all over the world, especially Europe, the European Romantic movement was sweeping the world, and there was this idea that no nation could have a great classical music without first knowing its own folk music. So if you think about Chopin's Polish mazurkas and Ralph Vaughan Williams' English folk song suite, anyway, the strategy did work because composers like Aaron Copland took our Alan Lomax field recording from 1937 of Kentucky fiddler Bill Stepp playing Bonaparte's Retreat, and he turned it into what's become the world famous piece called Hoedown, which is part of the Agnes de Mille ballet Rodeo, or Rodeo, depending on your persuasion. Also used as in the commercial Beef, It's What's for Dinner. So in time, we outgrew that motivation, but we now collect all forms of traditional cultural expression for the sake of preserving it, but also so we can honor the voices of all people from all walks of life.
Yeah, so as Jennifer says, we're the largest archive of ethnographic materials in the world, and the best known musical performers that we have include folks like Muddy Waters, Pete Seeger, Lead Belly, Woody Guthrie, Aunt Molly Jackson, Bill Monroe, Gene Ritchie. All of these people have large collections of recordings in our archive. But there are thousands more amazing tradition bearers that you've never even heard of. So in about 2015, we started to have this idea that we could create more opportunities for musicians to cover our materials. And we started doing that at the Folk Alliance International meeting, and we had a showcase that was called the Lomax Challenge Showcase at that time, and then we changed it to the Archive Challenge. And the idea is for a musician to learn a piece from our archive, put their own personal spin on it, and then perform it. And originally we did this, as we said, in showcases at the Folk Alliance International meeting, and then we started to do them at the Library of Congress in the Coolidge Auditorium. But when the pandemic hit, we came up with this idea of doing an at-home archive challenge, right? And the idea there was for musicians to take materials from our archive, create their own arrangements, create a video of themselves or audio of themselves doing it, and share that to social media with a special hashtag so that we could find it. And we started to do that. And a few days later, we had a conversation with our good friend Joe, and she was starting this thing called the Daily Antidote of Song. And we thought, hey, this would be an opportunity to connect our two projects. And so we started to do these Archive Challenge weeks. So as Joe said, this is the third one of these weeks, and we really want to thank Washington Revels and Carpe Diem Arts for having us do the Archive Challenge week at the Daily Antidote of Song. And so we're going to perform a song now, which is from the Alan Lomax collection. Alan Lomax collected this in 1951 from Seamus Ennis, who was himself a great folklore collector and singer.
Yeah, and it's got a fantastic, nonsensical, fun chorus for you to join in with. The words don't mean anything in particular. They're just really fun to say and fun to sing. It's a great kids song. It's a children's song, but it's, you know, there are children here, let's face it, of all ages today, including myself. So it's all about the great things you can make out of the different parts of a fish.
Right.
So let's.
You didn't know you could make all these things out of a fish.
And you still might think so not think so once the song is finished. But here's the chorus. So Steve, you'll alternate lines.
It's really two refrain lines that are interspersed into the verse.
Right.
So.
Steve will sing a line, then you'll sing this little refrain. He'll sing a line, you'll sing the refrain. And he'll sing a melody that goes. And then you sing.
Aberum Bain, sing Aberoling.
Try that with me.
Aberum Bain, sing Aberoling.
And then you'll sing another line. And then you sing.
Aberum Bain, sing Aberoling.
Try it with me.
Aberum Bain, sing Aberoling.
Let's try that all together.
Aberum Bain, sing Aberoling. Aberum Bain, sing Aberoling. Aberum Bain, sing Aberoling.
Sing that back to me.
Aberum Bain, sing Aberoling. Aberum Bain, sing Aberoling.
One more time.
Aberum Bain, sing Aberoling.
All right, you ready to try it? Here we go.
There once was a man who came from Kinsale. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, and he had a herring for sale. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, sing man of Kinsale with a herring for sale. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, and indeed I have more of me herring to sing. Aberumbane, sing aberolling. Now what do you think they made of his head? Aberumbane, sing aberolling, the finest griddle that ever baked bread. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, sing herring, sing head, sing griddle, sing bread. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, and indeed I have more of me herring to sing. Aberumbane, sing aberolling. What do you think they made of his eyes? Aberumbane, sing aberolling, the finest dishes for puddings and pies. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, sing herring, sing eyes, sing puddings and pies. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, and indeed I have more of me herring to sing. Aberumbane, sing aberolling. Now what do you think they made of his back? Aberumbane, sing aberolling, a fine little man and his name it was Jack. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, sing herring, sing back, sing man named Jack. Sing aberumbane, sing aberolling, and indeed I have more of me herring to sing. Aberumbane, sing aberolling. Now what do you think they made of his scales? Aberumbane, sing aberolling, the finest ships that ever set sail. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, sing herring, sing scales, sing ships, sing sails. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, and indeed I have more of me herring to sing. Aberumbane, sing aberolling. And what do you think they made of his fins? Aberumbane, sing aberolling, the finest cases for needles and pins. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, sing herring, sing fins, sing needles and pins. Aberumbane, sing aberolling, and indeed I've no more of me herring to sing. Aberumbane, sing aberolling.
The herring's head. Now you know it too.
And as we said, that was sung in Dublin, Ireland by Seamus Ennis for Alan Lomax in 1951. And I think we have actually a picture of Seamus Ennis that we can show you. And we actually have that recording of Seamus Ennis. So you can hear what Seamus Ennis sounded like singing
There he
that
is.
song.
He was also a great Ilian piper. He founded an organization for the preservation of Ilian pipes and their music and their repertoire. And Seamus Ennis is kind of a national hero because he is said to be responsible for preserving over 2,000 Irish songs and tunes through his work with the Irish Folklore Commission.
So we can actually hear what Seamus Ennis sounded like singing this song. And he, as Jennifer said, he was an interesting fellow. He got his start actually as a printer's apprentice. And one of the guys that he apprenticed with was a man named Colm O'Loughlin, who published one of the first books of Irish folk songs published in Dublin called Irish Street Ballads in 1939. And Seamus Ennis was the assistant who set the type on that book and learned many of those songs and then kept on learning songs for the rest of his life.
And he had a wonderful singing voice. Here it is.
Here it is.
We're having a
Katie, it's not playing. You want to try again?
In case we don't get it to play, we want you to feel welcome to go to the Association for Cultural Equity website, click on Sound Archives, and you can put Herring's Head in the search box, and you can hear a recording of Seamus Ennis.
Actually, pro tip, just type herring into the search box, because the way their search works, if it has either word, it'll show up and you'll get a million hits on Herring's Head, but only 4 or 5 on herring. So
yeah, so please visit the Association for Cultural Equity website where all these great recordings of Seamus Ennis.
So we'll just have to tell you that Seamus Ennis sounds just like me, only better. That's how you would hear the song if you heard Seamus Ennis singing it. So so that was our song for today, and we want to direct you again to be able to go to our archive, which is at loc.gov/folklife, and you can search there for all kinds of materials from the archive that you too can adapt and perform.
In particular, if you would like a nice overview of the Irish and Northern Ireland collections that we have, I'm going to ask Katie to put a link up in the chat for our finding aid. And a finding aid is a list of collections where you can find things on that topic. This finding aid is Ireland and Northern Ireland collections in the Archive of Folk Culture. And you can see all the different collections, figure out which ones you're interested in, and then contact us for more information.
And Katie can also give a link in the chat directly to that recording of Seamus Ennis, so you won't actually have to use the search box. So yeah, so and it's fun to explore Seamus Ennis's recordings too. On St. Patrick's Day itself, Kevin Elam will be here, and he will be performing another song from Seamus Ennis's
and
repertoire.
That's this Wednesday, so definitely tune in for Kevin Elam and have a great start your St. Patrick's Day right.
Yeah, you can see that we dressed for our St. Patrick's Day week today, but not all the performers this week are going to be Irish music. We've also got some great blues and great spirituals and all kinds of stuff coming up. So we're really looking forward to hosting you through this week of fantastic performers.
Did anyone have any questions about Seamus Ennis or Alan Lomax or the Irish collections in our archive or the song that we sang today? We're happy to take questions.
So there is a question in the chat if you can talk a little bit more about how the archives are available, not just this part, but all of it for folks to explore.
Yes, so I'll field that. So
Okay.
there's a number of ways to access our collections. For one thing, a lot of our materials are available on the Library of Congress website, and for that there's a bunch of different ways to get into them, but one of them is if you go to loc.gov/collections, then there's a way to limit that search. You'll see a set of part of, so something that's part of this part of the library. And if you click on American Folklife Center, you'll get all of our collections. So that's one way to do it. But there's actually numerous ways to get into the collections on the Library of Congress website. But one thing I'd recommend is I wrote a blog post, which is called Spending a Lot of Time at Home, Take the Archive Challenge. And that was, back toward the beginning of the pandemic. But you can find that at blogs.loc.gov/folklife. And if you just search for, a phrase in there,
Spending.
Spending, you'll find it. And the virtue of that is it has a list of all of our collections that are on the Library of Congress website, or ways to get in there. And then it also has a list of collections that are online at other institutions, because it is the case that we have either collections that are shared with other institutions, or collections that for thematic reasons or legal reasons made more sense to put online through other websites. And one of the examples of that is the large collection of materials that Alan Lomax made after he left the library in 1942. So everything Alan Lomax collected from 1942 until his death is actually online at a different site, which is called the Association for Cultural Equity. That was Alan Lomax's own foundation. And so that's one example of a website which has thousands of our recordings online, which is not the Library of Congress website.
And the lovely thing about it is all the things you want to know about that field recording, all the data, all the details, the info is on that page. Where was it recorded? Who's singing it? How many versions of that song are there by other people singing it? You can find all that out.
So yeah, and that site has materials that were collected not only in the US, but in Ireland, in Britain, and all over Europe. Lomax lived in Europe while it was blacklisted in the 50s. And so all of those collections are up on that site as well. So that's just one example. We also have a large collection called the James Madison Carpenter Collection, which is materials mostly recorded in Britain in the 1920s and 30s. And that's online at the Vaughan Williams Memorial Library in London. So again, you can find all those through that blog post that has a list of our collections in both, both on the Library of Congress website and elsewhere in the world. Now, on the Library of Congress website, most of our collections there were collected in the United States, but they were collected by collectors looking for all kinds of ethnic material. And so you will find everything from Finnish to Italian to Croatian, yeah, that were collected primarily in the Midwest and in California. A lot of Spanish language materials. So there's a lot of great stuff on the Library of Congress website, and then more international collections elsewhere. So I hope that helps answer that question.
Thank you.
Anybody else have another question?
So actually, I think we may have figured out the sound issue. So can we try and play that clip one more time?
that would be
Here's
cool.
Seamus Ennis.
Let's give it a whirl. Katie, you want to try?
Coming in just a moment. And 3. And here we go.
There was an old man who came from Kinsale, sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling, and he had a herring for sale, sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling. Sing man of Kinsale with a herring for sale, sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling, and indeed I have more of my herring to sing, sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling. And what do you think they made of his head? Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling, the finest griddle that ever baked bread. Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling. Sing herring, sing head, sing griddle, sing bread. Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling, and indeed I have more of my herring to sing. Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling. And what do you think they made of his back? Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling. A nice little man, and his name it was Jack. Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling. Sing herring, sing back, sing man, sing Jack. Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling. And indeed I have more of my herring to sing. Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling. And what do you think they made of his hair? Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling. The grandest rope for the seat of a chair. Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling. Sing herring, sing hair, sing rope, sing chair. Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling. And indeed I've no more of my herring to sing. Sing Aberum fain, sing Aberoling.
All right.
Seamus Ennis.
Seamus Ennis. And one thing you'll notice, and this is something that we tell our performers who are doing the archive challenge, you'll notice that there was a verse in there about using the herring's hair to make ropes for the seat of a chair. And we chose not to put that verse in, but we knew other verses from other sources, including the scales and the fins, and we decided to put those in there. So we're not asking you to faithfully reproduce the field recording so much as interpret it in a way that makes you happy.
And make the song your own. So we encourage all of you to take the stay-at-home archive challenge. Doesn't matter your skill level or whether you consider yourself to be a professional musician. Please learn a song from the archive, make it your own, make a little video, and put the hashtag on it and put it up, and we can help bring some of these fabulous songs back into the oral tradition. And I would say that this particular field recording of Seamus Ennis's was extremely influential in the Irish folk revival and the British folk revival of the 70s. In particular, there was a group called the Band Dogs that covered this song.
That's right.
It was all English musicians, but you can't keep a great song down. And speaking of that, shall we do it again?
All right.
Wait, can we hang on 1 second, guys, before we do it again? Just a couple quick things. So I want to shout out one of our regulars in the room, Kevin Ennis, who is faithfully watching on Facebook right now. He's a regular in this room, and his last name is Ennis.
That's right.
E-N-N-S. So he's having a good chuckle right now, I will just say, about all of
Maybe
this.
you're related. You never know.
Exactly. And Steve, I want to say that your singing, I would say, is of equal quality to,
Thank you.
but his Irish accent is better. Sorry.
That's true. Yeah.
And
He has a
also
thick Dublin accent. He does.
one more quick note when we what time is it? Can we just take two more quick questions? One person
Absolutely.
asked,
Sure. If you have the time, we have the time.
we got it. Somebody asked, how did Seamus Ennis get his money to be doing all of this collecting, which is a great question.
It is a good
we know.
question.
Seamus worked with the Irish Folklore Commission.
Yeah, so there's sort of three answers to that, right? So the Irish Folklore Commission was established by the Irish government, but it then was transferred to University College Dublin. So he had government money and he had university money to do it. And then the third answer is that he also worked a lot for the BBC, and that's kind of a public-private partnership also in Ireland and Britain. And so for all of those, in all of those ways, he got money from government, private, and university sources. But yeah, he was funded through the desire of Irish people to collect and preserve their own materials, which is the same way Jennifer and I are funded to do our jobs in the government as well. So we really appreciate that about him. So that was a great question. Thanks.
And would you say that sort of a story of how different folklorists sort of got the money to make their collections would actually be like an incredible book on its own, right? The number of different ways that they either are or are not funded and what their lives were like because of that, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's really interesting. I mean, one of the things that's funny is people often get mad at the Lomaxes who worked for the Library of Congress, of course, from the mid 30s to the early 40s for copyrighting the material that they collected. And one of the reasons for that was that, so the Lomaxes originally, or John Lomax, was what was called in the 1930s a $1 a year man, which meant that he got a job at the Library of Congress, which was nothing more than a title. He wasn't actually paid any money. He was paid a nominal amount of $1 a year in order to say that he worked for the government. So the actual money for his collecting came from book deals that they had with Macmillan and other publishers. And because of that, the publishers were, perforce going to copyright the material. So they really didn't have a choice but to do that, partly because they weren't taking their money from the government. And then later, of course, that changed and Alan Lomax got an actual government job with a salary. But that's, those are the kinds of circumstances that people don't often understand about the way these things happen. They happen through various different means of people, sort of hustling. And they had their side hustles, and this was John Lomax.
And they're happening today through the American Folklife Center, which recently got a generous grant from the Mellon Foundation, and will be funding community scholars and folklorists to go collect in underrepresented communities. So the efforts are ongoing, and thanks to the Mellon Foundation, the funding is ongoing.
Yeah.
Read more about it at the Folklife Today blog at www.loc.gov.
No, www.
Oh, sorry,
blogs.loc.gov/folklife.
Yes. And what's the name of the blog that you wrote on the upcoming Mellon Foundation?
Actually, John Fenn wrote that
John
blog.
Fenn wrote that
I don't
blog.
know the title. I don't remember the title.
Yeah, so spread the word about that. There'll be money for collecting activities in minority and underrepresented communities coming up very soon.
that's really cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
So even when Lomax was funded, do I remember reading sort of letters in the collection where he's sort of out in the field begging for somebody to please send $5 because he needs some needles for the player,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yep.
He was
Always running out of
he was
blank
constantly
discs.
running out of money, and the library had to sort of wire him money in the old days. And yeah, he would send short telegrams to Harold Spivak, who was his boss at the library, saying, "Please send money, not eating." So yeah, it was pretty dire there. It was the 30s. A lot of these field trips occurred for Alan Lomax occurred between 1937 and 1940. And it was hard times everywhere.
Miracle is that this collecting got done at all.
Right.
so Thank you for all of that. I'm actually going to toss one more thing out because you very casually talked about Lomax when he was blacklisted, and some folks in the room might not know the relationship between folk music and the blacklist. So it wasn't just Lomax, but others. Can you talk just for a minute about that?
I'll let Steve take this one.
Sure. So there was, in the 1950s, there was a move to root communists out of American society. And it was perceived that they were particularly strong in that communists, that is, were particularly prevalent in certain industries, including entertainment and broadcasting, and Lomax and music to some extent. Lomax was both a broadcaster and a collector of music, well known in the music world. And he got listed quite early in Red Channels, which was the book that kind of began putting people on a kind of list, which the list was, don't give this person a job, don't give this person any money to do their work. And a lot of people went through that, and the government also set up in that time a couple of committees within both the House and the Senate to investigate communism, headed by certain members of Congress who were very anti-communist, including Joseph McCarthy, who it came to be called McCarthyism, but there were others in both the House and the Senate who were doing this. And one of those committees was called the House Committee on Un-American Activities. And in the Senate, it tended to be the Senate Internal Security Subcommittee. And those two committees would actually call people in and grill them as to whether or not they were communists, and whether or not they knew other people who were communists. And this led to a lot of strife within the folk music world, because there were people who were extremely principled and not only wouldn't turn anyone else in, but wouldn't. So typically when Congress asks you a question, you have to answer the question truthfully. And if you don't, you can take the Fifth Amendment, right? Which is to say, I refuse to answer that question on the grounds that I may incriminate myself. That's a legal option that everybody has. But what's fraught with peril in that is that you are admitting that you think you did something that probably was illegal. And of course, none of these people, well, not none of them, but most of them hadn't done anything illegal. There's nothing illegal about being a communist, or being suspected of being a communist. So Pete Seeger took a very principled stand, and he went in there and he just said, I refuse to answer the questions, and I'm not going to claim that I might be incriminating myself. I'm just going to say that this is an extremely inappropriate question for you to be asking me, based on the First Amendment of freedom of speech and freedom of association. And so it was referred to as taking the First Amendment rather than the Fifth. And for that, he was put in contempt of Congress and was actually threatened with jail time. He spent a few days in jail, but he was threatened with a longer jail sentence. And ultimately, years later, it was all worked out, and he did not end up having to go to prison for doing this. But it was one example of a folk musician who took the most principled stand. On the other side, there were folk musicians like Burl Ives, who is known to have said, yeah, I think some of my friends are communists, and told the committee that. And everyone was very mad at Burl Ives for many years. Burl and Pete finally reconciled many, many years later. So that's just a really brief history of this. And of course, it was outrageous that they were asking people about their political associations and their free speech, activities, and treating it as though it might be a crime for them to do those things. And Pete was right, and he was borne out by history. So I hope that answers the question. That was kind of a rant.
No, it's an amazing answer. And, so one of the things we've learned in this room is that there's an incredible intersection between political unrest of any sort and arts and activism. And we've just had amazing artists coming through this room who in one way or another are taking some kind of a stand against something that they don't think is right. And so Sue Sean actually just posted in the chat a reminder of the time that Pete Seeger was singing somewhere else and was told he couldn't sing his lyrics. So he just played the music and the audience sang the lyrics, right, because they all knew them. and also of other artists who were blacklisted. Paul Robeson was another one. So there were so many who came through this because they were taking some sort of a stand against what they felt wasn't right. And so it's good. It's good for in here. I'm glad you're going to sing it or some part of it again. I don't care which. I would ask Jen if you wouldn't mind stepping back a little further this time so folks can hear the lyrics a little more this time, and sing whichever part you feel like.
All right.
I just wanted to quickly ask before we sing it again, how many of you play an instrument? I'm not able to see the chat box right now, so maybe Joe will. Anybody play the ukulele, the guitar, piano?
So I would say, yeah, we have. So I was actually going to say this. Your archive challenge for all of these Daily Antidote folks who I'm getting to know so well, no excuses for not doing an archive challenge. This is a room full of people who sing and who play instruments, and you don't even have to play an instrument to do the archive challenge, right?
This is a great song unaccompanied, but for those of you who do play instruments, I just wanted to let you know this is a great song to learn because it has only 3 chords. We're doing it in the key of D, which is great for guitars and ukuleles. It's the key of D, so we're using the chords D, G, and A. And I'm slipping an E minor in there every once in a while, but you don't have to. So here's a great song you can sing and learn and play with only 3 chords. So here we go.
So do we want to sing the whole song or do we want to sing the first and last verse, Jen?
First and last verse.
Okay, sounds
just
good.
Just to take people out on a happy note.
All right.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, yeah.
And we honor the fabulous cultural contributions in song and tune of the Irish people.
There once was a man who came from Kinsale, Aberumdane, sing Aberoling, and he had a herring for sale. Aberumdane, sing Aberoling, sing man of Kinsale with a herring for sale. Aberumdane, sing Aberoling, and indeed I have more of me herring to sing. Aberumdane, sing Aberoling. What do you think they made of his fins? Aberumdane, sing Aberoling, the finest cases for needles and pins. Aberumdane, sing Aberoling, sing herring, sing fins, sing needles and pins. Aberumdane, sing Aberoling, and indeed I've no more of me herring to sing. Aberumdane, sing Aberoling.
Bye-bye.
Woo!
It's been such a pleasure to be with you today. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Steve and Jen, thank you so much. Can we all please give it up for Stephen Winick and Jennifer Cutting? That was absolutely amazing. Thank you. Oh yeah, good screenshot. There you go. So actually, Steve, your fierce face there in the end was very, very powerful. You had on a good, like, fierce face, like you have to sing fiercely to sing this song, and I love it.
Completely unconscious. Had no idea what I was doing with my face.
That's all right, but don't worry about it because you can go back and look at it on Facebook Live again and again and again.
I can be embarrassed about it forever.
I know it was nothing, no embarrassment. It was a beautiful fierce face. So everybody in this room, archive challenge. So they've told you can put a hashtag when you give your song for the archive challenge, but you could also put a hashtag in your same post, Daily Antidote of Song, and we can conceive of it as a mini collection. It'd be like the archive challenge, Daily Antidote of Song submissions to the archive challenge. So come on, musicians in the room, let's do it. I'll put myself in the same lump. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Steve and Jen, thank you again so much. That was fabulous. Love singing with you today. I want to also shout out Katie Abadou for running a more complicated tech today. Thank you, Katie. Great job. And yeah, to everybody who was here today, thank you for being here. We'll say goodbyes and we can't wait to sing with you tomorrow. Steve and Jen, can you tell us quickly about tomorrow's Low Lily?
Yeah.
I'm going to get you the list.
All right. So Low Lily is Flynn Cohen and Liz Simmons, and they, I think, still live in Vermont, but they have performed in the Archive Challenge before at Folk Alliance, and they've also performed on our stage at the Coolidge Auditorium before, or at least Flynn has. And so they've been, you know, friends of ours and parts of our community for a long time. And we're really happy to have them.
They're going to be doing a song that John Lomax collected in Galax in 1937 at the Old Fiddlers Convention. It's come to be known currently as Waterbound, but the other titles in our old card catalog are like Old Pine Fields and Way Down in North Carolina. So I think you'll really like this song.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a great old time banjo and fiddle piece, and with a fun vocal as well. So yeah, so that's what we have on tap for tomorrow, and then there's going to be great musicians throughout the week, including we mentioned Kevin on Wednesday, who will
An
be
All Ireland male singing champion.
yeah, he'll be doing another Seamus Ennis song, and we've got Dom Flemons coming in, who's one of our good friends, who was actually the very first Archive Challenge artist, and also a Grammy winner with the Carolina Chocolate Drops.
And he knows our whole archive by heart.
That's right.
Just kidding, but he knows a lot of it.
He'll be doing a great spiritual, and then after that we have Kathy Fink and Marcy Markser, who are also there on Thursday, and they're fantastic. Rather, they're on Friday. And they're fantastic Grammy winners also as both old-time musicians and children's musicians, and they'll be doing another spiritual. And Hubby Jenkins on Saturday will be doing well, we don't know what he's doing yet.
Sydney Stripling?
Oh, he's doing Sydney
Yeah.
Stripling? Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, so he'll be doing a nice old-time piece, and then Kumera Zacharias on Sunday on the 21st. He'll be playing a fun blues called I'm Gonna Make You Happy.
And he went from harmonica and vocal to something with guitar. So it's going to be a very creative transformation.
Yeah, so that's the week that we have coming up, and we're looking forward to all of those people. But as I said, tomorrow is Low Lily, and Low Lily, I will say they often, and I think you might say normally, play as a trio with Lissa Schneckenberger, but they can't perform that way right now because of the pandemic. So it's the duo of Flynn and Liz.
And still the harmonies are stunning. So tune in tomorrow at noon.
Thank you, Stephen Jen. Another big round of flapping fingers for Stephen Jen. So great to spend this time with you in the room. Love being with you and are so excited for the rest of this week. And thank you to everybody out there on Facebook Live. Can't wait to see you tomorrow too.